Germany's 3-3 draw, and what a game it was. Here to reflect on it, Stevie Nicol, Shaka Hislop, and the Hamburglar himself, Archie Rhind-Tutt. Stevie, this had goals. You haven't seen goals for a while, Stevie. How would you react overall to the match?
Well, listen, if you're playing at home, you're playing with a front three, you score 3 goals at home, all your front 3 players score. I mean, this is 3 players in Gnabry, Havertz and Werner that could be your front line for the next 7 or 8 years. That's kind of what you would think you would be talking about. But unfortunately, when you can't defend to save your life, then that's what you're going to end up talking about. This absolutely was all about how horrible Germany are defensively. Listen, Germany had a huge possession of the ball, complete and utter counter-attacking football from the Swiss, and just the ineptitude of Germany's back line, whether it's the 2 centre-backs, the full-backs, or Neuer, who had a nightmare as well, then that's what you're going to talk about. 3-3, 6 goals, you should be great, but every time I think of that defence, I almost feel like having a heart attack.
Shaka, it was nuts. Every time Switzerland went forward, you thought they were going to score.
Yeah, and that's the ridiculous thing about this German side. There are just so many issues, and we are talking about a side that just scored 3 goals at home. But for me, up front, they play very narrow. They don't threaten you down the wide areas, so you can cope with them relatively easy. But then you're right. What Germany at the back are an absolute disaster. 3 at the back against Ukraine, 4 at the back against Switzerland, and it didn't look any better. To try to counter that, what the Germans are doing is pressing very high up the pitch, pressing very hard. That's what brought the 3 goals for Germany. 2 of those, Switzerland had a little bit of a part to play themselves. But once you play through that pressure, anything can happen, and that's what you're seeing. When that pressure tells, Germany can turn it around really quickly. But when you get through, just as worryingly, you can get at this German defense regardless of who they employ or what formation they use.
Is Joachim Low going to get sacked, Archie?
I don't think he will, but he needed this kind of entertaining display to really pep up his hopes, I would say, because TV numbers have been going down here in Germany, as has interest in the national team, and there was a lot of pressure on Joachim Low to change his formation, particularly that back 3 had been coming under a lot of pressure, and there was a lot of relief, I think, when it looked like Germany would play a back 4 tonight, and they certainly were more dynamic going forward. But whether that's enough with Matthias Ginter and Antonio Rudiger as your 2 centre-backs, they're just not up to the same standard as Mats Hummels and Jerome Boateng, who, of course, Joachim Low banished from the national team back in March 2019 it was. So he's been trying to rebuild since the World Cup 2018 disaster. He's used 51 different players since then, but I think it is time for him to try and find that right formula. The problem is Germany does not have the depth that, say, France has at centre-back, where you'd fancy them to play about 12 of their players there, and I think Germany would be very happy to have just 2 of those options.
Well, it just emphasises how ridiculous some of his choices have been. You mentioned Boateng, Mueller as well, of course, banished to the naughty step. Yet, these 2 are starting for arguably the best team in the world at the moment, Archie.
That's it. And Joachim Low was under pressure to make changes after that debacle. And I think particularly to create an environment for these new younger players to come in. But was centre-back the position to do that in? How much of a destructive influence is Jerome Boateng really to a side? Mats Hummels and Thomas Mueller are known for having their opinions on various matters and not being shy to say that. And I can maybe understand how that would be maybe overshadowing an impact for some of the younger players. But on the other hand, I think of the experience that they bring, and it was just a case of, could Joachim Low continue to handle these big personalities? And the answer was no. So it was either Joachim Low goes, or some of these bigger names went to create this space for these newcomers. But I'd say that right now Germany would probably be better off without Joachim Low than with the likes of Thomas Mueller, Mats Hummels and Jerome Boateng still around.
From a coaching standpoint, Stevie, that's pretty pathetic, isn't it?
What?
Not having the ability to control your big players, to be scared of their influence in the dressing room. Come on, you're the big boy, you're the coach. You've got to sort this out for the better of the team, surely.
100%. Yeah, I don't understand any coach that would banish any player, because you don't know what's round the corner. You don't know when you're going to need them. And right now, listen, I'm not a huge fan right now of Boateng. I think he's slow. But then every centre-back Germany got right now is slow. So if Sula's your number one, he's even slower than Boateng. So you bring him back, but you can't bring him back because he's banished them. And that's when you make a mistake. I understand that if you've got somebody who's a little trappy, who's going to have a bad influence on the younger players, then what you do is you just don't pick them. But you don't turn around and say, that's it, you're done. Because now you find yourself in a position where really you would love to go and bring a Boateng in just for a small period of time till things settle down. But he can't do that. So he's hamstrung himself. So I guess in the end, Dan, the answer to your question is yes.
Here's the amazing thing to this for me, Dan. And we were discussing previously how long Joachim Low has been with the German national team. Started off as an assistant, and then after the debacle of 2006, took over from Jürgen Klinsmann with the job of rebuilding the side. So the likes of Boateng and Mueller all kind of matured under Joachim Low as national team coach. So if now they are speaking out and they are taking exception to whatever it is going on, it's pointing to the fact that something is wrong, that something just isn't adding up. If these players who came from virtually the youth squad through to establishing themselves as world champions, while you're a head coach, are now speaking out against you, it says something is wrong, and that's what you're seeing.
Oh, hold on, Shaka, I can't take that. Just because a player says something means it's right. Listen, I've coached a lot of players who have got plenty to say,
no,
and most of them couldn't figure out what end a zebra's head and backside is. So just because they're getting trappy doesn't mean they're correct.
Well, what I'm saying, Stevie, is I maybe you know better than me, but for the life of me, I cannot see a player maturing, coming in as a young player, coming into a squad under one coach, maturing, winning things for both club and country, and then all of a sudden getting trappy under that same coach. I just feel that there's a certain amount of respect that comes with territory. And if that respect isn't recognized any further by those players, it speaks to a bigger issue.
Archie, what do the fans
think? If you had that respect, you wouldn't be trappy at a guy that you matured with.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN+.